Evening all. Well, I'd like to say a big hello and thank you to all my new subscribers. I've practically doubled my subscriber count in the last fortnight, which is fantastic. And a big hello to all of you who are coming over from the Deep Law on Discord as well. I've really enjoyed meeting some of you guys online, or sometimes in voice chat. You've given me a great welcome on board the Deep Law, and I really look forward to chatting about things, engaging in interesting topics and silly topics and everything in between. So that's out of the way, and also I'm not going to be eating any biscuits tonight. Frankly, I'm biscuited out. I had too many when I broke the barrier when I got up to the fifth biscuit. You've got to ramp it back because the path of insanity, I just think, lies ahead. Okay, so anyway, I'm continuing my series on the 10 most effective people on the anti-left, and my entry coming in at number 4 is Jacob Rees Mogg. Now, let's talk about the Mogg. He's a politician, a British politician that so many people like. He has such a level of popularity and appeal right now. But at the same time, he sends the progressive left into a headspin. And I'm going to be looking at what accounts for his popularity and why the progressive left get in a tizzy about him. Now, being a Conservative Member of Parliament, the far left were always going to hate him. So I'm not going to deal with their reactions to him that much. We've all seen the clips of him being harassed outside his house by protesters. Protester, singular, who's a bit of a loon anyway. And also he was confronted at a talk at a university he gave, where he was on a panel about Brexit. And I'm going to touch on that first of all, because Rees Mogg's reaction to confronting protesters is very indicative of the man himself. He doesn't run away, he doesn't hide behind security, he pushes his security aside and he goes and talks to them. This is what he did at the university when he was giving a talk on Brexit. He was on a panel and he was being heckled and abused. And security guards said, "Shall we have them removed?" And he said no. And he went and tried to talk to them. And people said, "Aren't you worried that you're going to be physically attacked?" And he says, "This is Britain. They won't do that." And he tried to engage them. And that tells you so much about the man. And also, when he confronted, it's somebody called Bone. Was it Philip Bone, Paul Bone? Not Peter Bone, because he's a Conservative MP. But there was a mad chap, a professional agitator, the class war guy. Just doorstepped him and started saying to his kids, "Your daddy's a very bad man." And what I liked about Rees Mogg, and again it shows you the calibre of the man, was that in a very quiet and understated way, he went and stood in between the man and his children. If you wanted to get to his children, you'd have to get past Jacob Rees Mogg first and let the police stand directly in the way. And he had, just in very subtle gestures, just had his son just kind of retreat back to the front door. This is a man who is supremely calm when situations are bad, when the random things happen, when somebody out of the blue comes and accosts him. His calmness and his serenity. He is an English gent. He could have stood at the Battle of Waterloo, the siege of Mafeking, stood on the ramparts there. He is of that tradition. And I think that accounts for his appeal with the general public, because he embodies a lot of the classical, stereotypical English gentlemanly qualities that people have traditionally looked up to and in the last 20 years have been extremely undermined. The culture of the educated middle class in the United Kingdom has changed so much that they've forgotten about the gentlemanly qualities, just the quiet authority, the calmness in the face of potential danger. And I think ordinary people across the country, and Mogg has this appeal. He can reach out to all sections of society. He's not just an Etonian toff. He's an Etonian toff that the working classes in industrial areas, in poor areas, in rural areas, the cab drivers of London, the farmers in the countryside, in his own beloved North Somerset, people across the country respond to Mogg because they see a man who embodies classic British gentlemanly values. He is quietly courageous as they see him, and also his ability to strip a complicated issue down into its component parts. There's a very good clip on YouTube where he is on a BBC Politics program, I think it's the Daily Politics, where he and Ken Clarke are debating about Brexit. And as Ken Clarke adopts a kind of sneering, mocking tone about Brexit, whoa, what is sovereignty anyway? Rees Mogg boils down the concept. I see what I did there. That's completely spontaneous. Did not plan that. What naughty. That's thrown me. But anyway, Rees Mogg just responded. He stripped down. What is sovereignty? He explained it. What is Brexit about? He explained it. He explained it in very plain terms, not simplistic terms, plain terms. He's very good at doing this, and that's why I think he gets the response that he does. And he gets the approval. But in this series, when we look at the anti-left, we always have that thing. How effective are they? Well, let's look at what his opponents are doing. And yes, when Rees Mogg gets out there into the public, I would say the chattering classes, the progressive left middle class, go into meltdown. And that's how come you know he is being effective. So what I can't get over that, but it's in the back of my head now. So what happened was that some months ago, the journalist Dan Hodges tweeted out that he thought Rees Mogg was dangerous, and I wrote back to Dan Hodges and I said, "Do you really think he's dangerous?" And Hodges got back to me. And he said, "Oh yeah, he definitely is." And then I followed it up with, "How is he dangerous?" Hodges never got back to me on that one. So yeah, he's dangerous apparently. And I'm thinking, is it because of his Catholicism? Some people have raised that as a potential worry factor about Mogg, as if somehow Rees Mogg as PM would bring in a British version of The Handmaid's Tale, which is the worst dystopian fiction I have ever read. And I've read a few. I've read On the Beach, and that was pretty bad. But above all, he has his faith and his Catholicism, which he's quite open about, but I don't think he's heavy-handed with it. It's something he has adopted as his personal code, but he realises he is in a Protestant country and a secular one at that. So I've never seen Rees Mogg sort of inflict his Catholicism on other people. News interviewers try and trip him up on it, and he comes back to the fact that it is his personal thing, it's his relationship with God. And there has been no sign that he would somehow propel us into a sort of Catholic nation if he was to become Prime Minister, which he... Insiders that know Rees Mogg say that he doesn't want to be Prime Minister. What he would ideally like to be is Speaker of the House of Commons. I think that's a bit of a waste of his talents at this time. But he ruffles feathers. He amongst the progressive elites who think he's dangerous, but they can't put a finger on why. And I think it is because he succeeds where they fail, where they can only hector the UK electorate, he talks to them. Where they hold the electorate in contempt, he holds the electorate almost in awe. There's a kind of reverence. And the key to understanding Rees Mogg is that he loves the parliamentary tradition. He has looked back over centuries of British history. I think this is something he inherited from his father, who was an intellectual, and he understands the principles of the rule of law, the Magna Carta, the 1689 Bill of Rights, the evolution of British parliamentary democracy, and he holds that as sacrosanct, almost as much as he holds the Catholic sacraments as a pinnacle of his life. I think he holds British parliamentary democracy and tradition in that same kind of reverence, and that's what motivates him on Brexit. Sorry, and that's what motivates him with his political stances, I think, and it would behove people of Dan Hodges's ilk to understand that, while the progressive left have spent 20 years trying to somehow dismantle or undermine parliamentary tradition and British democracy and try and replace it with something that has the veneer of democracy and everything about special advisors and cliques and a sort of unaccountability. I think Rees Mogg is standing up for something that goes back centuries, and I think for that reason he is getting up the nose of the left. I've barely touched on his opinions about Brexit, but this is more about how effective he is as somebody on the anti-left. He is reminding people about parliamentary democracy, and he is reminding people that conservatism isn't all about making a quick buck and selling out. It is about ideals that have endured for centuries, that make up the British character. And when he goes after the EU, it's because he can see what the public have already seen, that there is a fundamental clash and an irreconcilable, as things stand, it's an irreconcilable difference between the EU's top-down and centralizing mission to create a single nation state versus the parliamentary tradition that we've had for centuries, and we've been able to maintain it and adopt it and improve it and develop it because we have not been invaded, because we have not allowed ourselves to be invaded and occupied for over 1,000 or nearly 1,000 years. So this is what Rees Mogg is, and people love that. They like to be reminded of the ties that bind in our society rather than the things that divide. And these ancient traditions and the ability to speak freely and the ability to respect an institution that has benefited all of us, I think that's what Rees Mogg represents, and that's what the progressive left hate, because he is connecting to the public in a way that they can never do. And that's why he gets a big salute from me, sir. Even though he's a Hill House boy, and I was a Sussex House boy. And if you were either a Hill House or a Sussex House boy, you know what I mean. Two rival schools that are a few blocks away from each other in London. So they wore the rust-coloured knickerbockers, and we had the grey tweed suits. So that's that. Anyway, this is Nick, and I'm saying goodnight. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I will see you out there in internet land. So until next time, bye.